So this is Google Drive. I wanted to show you some shortcuts that you can use on your keyboard, which might help speed things up when you're moving files, deleting files, and so on. So we can see down the side here, it tells us how much storage we've got left. These files at the top, these are the quick access files. So these are the files that we've recently opened. So the last 5 files that we looked at, they're the ones that tend to appear up here in the top. Any folders, they appear here. And the reason this is orange is because if you right click, you can change the color of these files to make them stand out so you can find them again a little bit quicker later on. And these are the files that exist inside Google Drive. Now, there are a couple of different ways you can look at these files. At the moment, they're in these kind of preview panes, but if we was to click this list view icon here, we can see them as a list of files instead. We can easily jump backwards and forwards. Or if we just press V on the keyboard, V for victory, it does exactly the same thing as clicking this little list view icon over here. Now sometimes, especially if you've had a file shared with you and you've made a copy of it, it will be called something like copy of and then whatever the file name is, which is not brilliant if you're looking for it and you're trying to find it again later. So renaming files, you can just right click and choose rename, or again on the keyboard, if you select the file and press the N for name key, it gives you the option to rename the file over here. Okay, so pretty straightforward. And one of the things we tend to do a lot is share files. So if you want someone else to have view access or edit access to that file, then you can do that quite easily. And there are a couple of ways you can do this. Again, you can right click the file, click the share option that pops up on the menu, or you can click the icon up here on the top toolbar, which does exactly the same thing, or you can press the full stop on the keyboard, the dot, and that will take you to exactly the same place. And then of course we can share that with somebody else, and we get a couple of options in here. We can make people an editor of the file, which means they can make changes to it and do whatever they like with it, or we can make them a commentator, which means they can read it, they can't edit it, but they can leave us some comments and make some suggestions in the comments on the side. Or we can just make them a viewer, which means they can see the file, but they can't comment and they can't edit it either. If we want them to be notified that we have given them editor or viewer or shared a file with them, then we can just leave this box ticked and write them a little message, and they will then receive an email saying, you know, that we've shared a file with them. Okay, if you don't want that, then that's fine. You just untick this box and they won't get the notification, but the share still does take place. An alternative way is to click the little cog here to get into the settings, and you can decide whether you want your people you're sharing with to download, print and copy the file. If you don't want them to be able to do that, then you would just untick these boxes. And if you don't want someone you've made an editor to change any of the permissions or add anybody else to the file, for example, share it with other people, then you can prevent them from doing that as well. So again, pretty straightforward, and literally just a case of ticking boxes. If you want everybody in your organization, now you will only tend to get this if you belong to an organization, but if you want everybody in the organization to be able to see the file, then you can just choose that option here, and make anybody a viewer or a commenter or an editor. But literally anybody with an @your organization email will be able to see, comment or edit on this file once you have copied and sent them that link. Okay, so that's sharing files, renaming files. The only other thing is perhaps you might want to have a quick look at a file without actually seeing what's in it, especially if you're in this view. So you're poking down, you think, oh, what is that? I can't remember what that was. You get the option here just to preview that file, so you can have a look and see, is this the right one before you open it in Documents or download it. Deleting files is much the same way. You can choose the bin, you can right click and you can remove, or you can just press the delete key. But the delete key immediately removes it. If you go to the bin, you'll find it's in there, and if you want to get it back, then you can just right click and restore it, and it will be back in your drive as if it was never deleted. Any files that are shared get these little people on them. So if you look down and see these little people have appeared, that's because at some point you've shared that with somebody.